The cake was ordered. The venue was booked. My fiancé's eyes lit up every time we talked about the ceremony we'd been planning for 8 months. Everything was perfect. Until Karen decided it wasn't. Karen, the HOA president with the personality of a malfunctioning smoke detector, showed up at my door 3 weeks before my wedding holding a clipboard like it was a holy relic. She didn't knock. She pounded. The kind of pounding that says, "I have power and you're about to know it." I opened the door, still in my pajamas, coffee in hand, completely unprepared for the hurricane about to make landfall in my living room. "Your wedding decorations violate HOA Code Section 7.4, she announced, not even bothering with hello. No smile, no warmth, just pure distilled authority mixed with what I can only describe as weaponized pettiness. I blinked. "What decorations? The wedding isn't even here. It's at the community center." "The flowers," she snapped, jabbing her finger at the potted arrangements I'd temporarily placed on my front porch. Beautiful white roses and baby's breath, perfectly tasteful, waiting to be transported to the venue. "Those exceed the allowed floral display limit by 3 inches. 3 inches. Smash that like button and subscribe because this one gets satisfying. And drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. We want to know how far Karen's karma travels." I tried reasoning with her. I really did. "Karen, they're only here temporarily. They'll be gone in 2 days for the wedding." "Rules are rules," she said, like she was reciting scripture. "Remove them by tonight or face a $500 fine." $500 for flowers. That would be gone in 48 hours anyway. My fiancé, Marcus, came to the door, sensing the tension. He's the calm one in our relationship, the guy who can de-escalate a bomb with a smile and some logic. "Ma'am, I'm sure we can work something out. This is just a misunderstanding." Karen's eyes narrowed. "There's no misunderstanding. Your wedding is causing disruptions to our community standards." "Our wedding that's happening at the community center that we rented through proper channels?" I asked, feeling my blood pressure rising like mercury in a thermometer held over a flame. "That community center," she said, venom dripping from every syllable, "is subject to HOA approval for events that impact neighborhood traffic and parking. And I'm not sure I approve." There it was. The real problem. This wasn't about flowers or regulations. This was about control. Karen had just realized she might have leverage over the happiest day of my life, and she was going to squeeze it until something broke. The next week was psychological warfare. Karen sent 3 certified letters demanding I submit detailed parking plans, noise assessments, and even a guest list for security purposes. She claimed my wedding, scheduled for 2 p.m. on a Saturday, would create unreasonable disturbances, even though half the neighborhood was invited and the other half didn't care. She showed up at the community center during my rehearsal, measuring the arch placement to ensure it met setback requirements. She questioned my caterer about permits. She even tried to get the DJ to sign an affidavit promising not to exceed 65 decibels, which is roughly the volume of normal conversation. Marcus kept telling me to stay calm, to take the high road. And I tried. I really did. But Karen wasn't just being difficult. She was actively trying to dismantle my wedding piece by piece, regulation by regulation, until there was nothing left but tears and cancellation fees. Then I found out about the HOA gala. Karen, in all her glory-seeking wisdom, had organized an elaborate HOA appreciation dinner for the following weekend. She'd been planning it for months, sending constant emails about her vision for community excellence. She'd rented the same community center. She'd hired the same caterer. She'd even booked the same DJ. And suddenly, sitting at my kitchen table surrounded by wedding spreadsheets and Karen's threatening letters, I had an idea. A beautifully petty, perfectly justified idea. I pulled out the HOA bylaws, the same ones Karen loved weaponizing against everyone else. I read them cover to cover, 3 times, highlighting every single obscure regulation that could possibly apply to her event. And there were so many. Section 12.3. All community events require 30-day advance notice with detailed impact assessments. Karen had submitted hers 28 days prior, technically non-compliant. Section 8.7. Event decorations cannot exceed fire code limitations for enclosed spaces. Her plan included 16 centerpieces with real candles. Fire marshal might have thoughts about that. Section 15.2. Community center events must maintain accessible parking for residents not attending. Her guest list was so large it would consume every space. I didn't just have ammunition. I had an entire arsenal. The Monday before Karen's gala, I submitted a formal complaint to the HOA board. Not to Karen directly, that would have tipped her off. Straight to the board, citing every violation I'd found, backed by the same bylaws she'd been beating me over the head with for 3 weeks. I attached photos of her decoration setup that violated spacing requirements. I included noise ordinance concerns based on her planned timeline. I even noted that her caterer's van would block the accessible entrance during setup, which technically violated ADA compliance guidelines. The board, already exhausted by Karen's constant power trips, saw an opportunity. They called an emergency review of her event. Wednesday morning, 2 days before her gala. Karen was furious. She called me 17 times. I let every single call go to voicemail. She showed up at my door. I didn't answer. She sent emails with subject lines in all caps demanding I withdraw the complaint. I responded with one line. Rules are rules. Her own words, delivered back to her like a boomerang made of karma. The board ruled that her event needed modifications. The candles had to go. The guest list had to be reduced by 30%. She had to hire additional parking attendants at her own expense. And most beautifully, they required her to submit a revised plan by Friday morning, the day of my wedding, meaning she'd be drowning in paperwork while I was walking down the aisle. My wedding was perfect. The sun came out. Marcus cried during his vows. My daughter, the flower girl, didn't trip once. The food was incredible. The DJ kept the dance floor packed until midnight, and not a single HOA violation in sight, because I'd triple-checked everything just to be safe. Karen's gala, from what I heard, was a disaster. Half her decorations arrived wrong because she'd been too stressed to confirm orders. The caterer, frustrated by her last-minute demands, delivered the wrong entrees. She spent the entire evening looking like someone had replaced her champagne with vinegar, forcing smiles while her community excellence celebration crumbled around her. I didn't attend, obviously, but my neighbors sent photos. Karen standing alone by the punch bowl. Karen arguing with the DJ about volume levels. Ironic, considering she'd tried to police mine. Karen discovering that when you spend all your time making enemies, you don't have many friends left to celebrate with. The following Monday, I received a letter from the HOA board, an official apology for the confusion around my wedding, along with a note that they'd be reviewing event approval processes to ensure fairness going forward. Translation: Karen's reign of terror had created enough complaints that they were stripping her of some authority. Did I feel guilty? For about 3 seconds. Then I remembered her standing on my porch, threatening to ruin my wedding over 3 inches of roses. I remembered the stress she'd put Marcus and me through during what should have been the happiest month of our lives. I remembered her face when she realized I'd beaten her at her own game. Karma isn't always instant. Sometimes you have to help it along. Sometimes you have to pick up the HOA bylaws, read the fine print, and serve justice with a side of perfectly documented violations. Karen still lives in the neighborhood. She still sends petty emails about grass height and fence colors. But now, when she does, people reply with, "Rules are rules, right, Karen?" And somehow, she never pushes quite as hard as she used to. As for me and Marcus, we're living happily in our home with our flowers on the porch, exactly 3 inches over the limit. And Karen hasn't said a word, because some battles aren't won with anger or confrontation. They're won with patience, planning, and the sweet, sweet sound of someone's own rules crashing down around them.